Today, the White House stated that President Trump is involved in the listening phase of trying to figure out how to avert various shootings as the one we had in Florida last week. And as I read the article by The Hill, whom I should be the sponsor for at this point, I mean, they are really the place I get most of my information on various news events from at this point. But nonetheless, as I read that and I kind of thought more and more about it, I said, this was a very awful, horrible, every other bad adjective that could be used to describe this event. But on the account of numbers, it still is not the worst we've ever had. Obviously, the worst was the one in Vegas 4 months ago, and then before that, it was the Orlando nightclub shooting, which incidentally happened the day after I got out of high school. But that's another story. The reason I bring those up is that after the Vegas shooting happened, that's more relevant because it's the most deadliest one still, and also it was under Trump's reign as well. And in his speech that he gave at that time, he stated that we were going to start speaking about gun laws. We're going to discuss various changes in just our way of life. And that address by itself was not bad, but I knew following it that nothing would be done. And I guess part of what I'm trying to figure out is I've seen a very different reaction coming out of this White House and just people who typically are for, gun control or against gun control, rather. People who are for gun control have been consistent all the way. They always have said, we need to do something about these. But nonetheless, I'm confused because that shooting was deadlier, and it seems as if it had a smaller reaction. We talked about bump stocks for a week or two, and that was pretty much it. You still don't know that much about the perpetrator, Paddock or whatever. We still are not completely aware of to what extent that was planned out. You know what the motive was. Just there's nothing there, and that in my opinion is a scarier case because when you look at the life of Cruz, the guy who did this one, you could still infer from his prior behavior this was something he thought about. Obviously being a former student. With Vegas, it was kind of a thing where okay, we knew that the Paddock liked to go and do things over in that area, but what drove him this man who was in his early 60s that had lived a seemingly normal life all the way up to that point to just snap and lose it and just start mowing people down? That to me is a question that is very significant, but that also says to me it's problematic when we have these shootings over and over again to where we get to the point where one of them gets a significant amount of coverage for about a week and then it just drops down. I'm asking myself what happened to our outrage over Vegas. And I'm saying that in particular about the Trump White House. They didn't really speak or respond to that case after that first month of it being around. And that's what I think will happen with this shooting, unfortunately. Yes, there are a lot of people who have come out of that event who are going to, speak about things and be recurring figures at this point in the media. But what are those in charge doing to stop this? And why didn't they respond to a deadlier shooting a couple of months ago that had a similar frustration on the part of the people who went through it, saw it, and were just outraged by it as well? So I'm confused as to why this is getting as much attention as it's getting for this week, and the fact that we had one that was much more deadly get tossed to the curbside. And understand, I'm not saying you know this one was good or was okay, but I'm factoring in what they did to the Vegas shooting, where they just completely started writing it off after that first month, is what I'm worried about happening to this one, because I don't want this to just go away. Our reaction was to give out thoughts and prayers and talk about gun control and do nothing. That shouldn't be the case anymore. So I hope something happens with both of those. We'll find out.